welcome to the Pipeline of People podcast, the show where we explore the systems, stories, and shifts shaping the consulting world. I'm your host, Jaden Parisi. Here we spotlight leaders building for scale, from first hires to global teams, and unpack what it really takes to grow a firm without losing your edge. Whether you're consulting solo or leading an agency, this show is your field guide to sustainable, profitable growth. Today's guest is someone who's redefined how operations and applied AI intersect. Harsha Pai is co-founder and board director at Aethon Solutions, a firm pioneering operational transformation across asset management and alternative investments. Harsha, welcome. Could you kick us off with a quick look at your background?
Thanks, Jaden. Yeah, so where do I start? I guess I've been around for over 25 years, primarily working on what I would call traditional technology and outsourcing. Did that very, very successfully for over 2.5 decades for Fortune 1000 companies. And kind of made the pivot over the last, I would say, couple of years. Very, very excited to kind of talk about how AI has helped us enhance productivity, quality, compliance, and all those good things.
Okay, amazing. I know you're calling from India today, right? My day's just starting up here in Canada, but how's yours been?
Well, it's been a long, busy, but very, very fruitful day for us.
That's good. Do you have anything that's non-work related that's energizing you lately?
Well, I've got kids, twin boys, 10-year-old, keep me on my feet and make me feel young.
Wow, that's sounds like a handful.
Totally, yeah. But that's what gives me joy.
Yeah, of course. So here's what the plan for today is. We're going to cover the transformative power of AI in business today, what AI can and can't automate, and what that means for humans, what's actually powering the current wave of advancement, and the business problem your team at, I can't remember, Aethon? Yeah. Aethon is solving, and finally, advice for startups looking to embrace AI responsibly. Sound good?
Absolutely.
Okay. So could you describe your current role at Aethon and the vision behind the company?
Yeah, so I'm one of 4 co-founders who came together. We've known each other for, as long as I've been working, I guess. 2 of my co-founders are New York-based in the US, and 2 of us over here in India. What got us together really was, the promise of AI itself, right? I think the nature of business problems that we've had has always remained consistent, right? So we always have these issues with data, with legacy and broken workflows. And, we've always had tools to kind of deal with them. It was only over the last year or so with the advent of generative AI that, in all of our minds, we just felt that there was a completely different, very innovative, highly breakthrough-led way of being able to address those same questions. And, when we kind of had that conversation, we soon realized that this was much larger than any one of us. And we said, this is exactly what we're going to be doing. So that's how Aethon was formed.
Okay, great. And how do you explain what Aethon does when you're talking to someone outside of financial services or AI?
That's a great question. So, regardless of industry, regardless of, which market you operate in, as a matter of fact, regardless of which function, you're in, the more that you think about it, the nature of operations has always been very similar. So therefore, the kind of problems that you encounter again are fairly consistent. One of the first problems that you typically have is one around data, right? So everybody has data, but the more that you talk about it, they soon realize that the data is not well organized, it's not in the shape and form that they need, and more than anything else, it's not business ready, right? So that was the first area that we put AI to. And we found that we now had this almost like a magic wand that allowed us to be able to transform, to normalize, to manipulate and do fantastic things with data in a manner that we'd never really seen before. So I think that's the first major proposition. And once you've kind of addressed the whole data problem, the big question is now, where do you put it and how do you make that data perform, right? And soon we realized that that same data now is going into legacy systems where things are really broken. So therefore, the next opportunity for us was really to leverage, AI and how we could streamline processes, reinvent processes. And one of the first areas, of course, that we looked at, as you said, was the world of asset management operations. But the more that we think about it, I think we'd be doing disservice, not just to the products that we build, but to AI itself, if we were not to look at a whole bunch of other areas. So I think the solution applies itself across industries, across functional areas.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely have firsthand experiences with bad data. Before I started Versorix, I was a data analyst at a consulting firm, and I've been inside of some of the largest financial institutions in Canada, and let me tell you, it's just a disaster.
A penny for every time that I heard that problem.
Yeah, yeah. Well, good that you guys solve it. So, when people say AI is transforming everything and AI is going to take my job, you know, what do you have to say to that?
Well, AI definitely has great potential. As a matter of fact, if you think about it, AI already is all pervasive. It's everywhere. I mean, when you're keying in a search into Google, when you're speaking to Siri, autonomous driving, everything today is already being powered by AI. And to be honest, AI has been around for over 50 years. I think what's kind of really changed things is the advent and the maturation of generative AI over the last 2 to 3 years. Suddenly, we're now seeing that, AI is able to perform more cognitive, more intelligent tasks at a pace and at a level that we've never really seen before, right? Just to give you a quick example, the 2024 prize, the Nobel Prize for Chemistry, was actually won by Demis Hassabis. Now, Demis is not even a chemist. He's not even a scientist. He's actually a computer programmer, okay? And what he did was he actually used the power of AI to be able to solve for protein structures, right? So he created this program called AlphaFold. And what AlphaFold does is, with a very high degree of accuracy, predicts protein structures within humans or anywhere else. And, that's something that could potentially provide us with huge breakthroughs in the area of cancer research, in the areas of, looking for cures for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and so on, right? So, I'm convinced, quite strongly convinced, as a matter of fact, that AI does possess a lot of potential. But that said, AI still is at a point where it struggles, right? So we've all heard about, hallucination and data drift and in some cases even ethical issues around decision making by autonomous systems. And therefore, at this point in time, I also do feel convinced that the right model is really, with a human in the loop, or actually a human who's actually the director for the AI solution, right? So some of the more human faculties, such as creativity, ideation, conceptualization, uh, problem solving, engaging at a human level, I think will not go away anytime soon. So AI certainly will provide for a great co-pilot to drive productivity, to do great research for you, to prepare and articulate things in ways that we as humans have always struggled with, but we'll still need someone to kind of rein it in and provide those guardrails to ensure that some of these risks are addressed as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was a pretty early adopter of ChatGPT, so I've seen it from, I don't even remember what the first model was, but go from that to what it is now, and the evolution and speed of how fast that's happening is just absolutely mind blowing. And I do agree with you about it being paired up with humans. It's great. Um, but I also want it to kind of challenge me and work with me, not for me, right? So I've actually trained my chat GPT to do things like challenge my thinking, play devil's advocate, kind of make me clarify things if my ideas are kind of rough or general, right? So it's very powerful in what you can do with a trained chat GPT. But yeah, do you have any experience with that training
Oh,
LLMs or?
yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, there's this very, very interesting research study that was conducted by Stanford. And they went out and spoke to, I think, close to about 400 different companies that had adopted and embraced AI across a wide number of areas and functions. And over a period of time, asked the simple question of, has it actually improved things for you or otherwise? And they actually almost found like it was a 50-50, right? So exact same number of people who said it's great, and the others who said not so great. And that was a revelation for them. So they said, let's dig a little deeper to find out why is it that some people have succeeded while others are still struggling with it. And I think that in itself provided for a great insight into how do you make AI work for you. So one of the biggest findings was the people that were successful in adopting, embracing, and implementing AI were those that actually thought of AI almost as a teammate, right? So what do you do when your teammate isn't performing? You actually go and counsel them. You go and give them advice. Have that conversation about context and what are they getting wrong, and go to an iterative process of how do you fix some of those issues, as opposed to some of those people who gave up on AI very early just thought of it as a tool and very quickly gave up on it and said, hey, you know what, I gave it all the instructions and didn't work. So I think one of the biggest things that I think has been a learning for us and as a community as well is to almost think of it as a actual co-pilot, someone who's a trainee, and the responsibility really is on us to provide for that context, to drive that logical analytical thought process, and then let AI take over from that point on.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting that 50-50 stat. I didn't know that. But it makes complete sense. I read from Carlyle Group that their in-house AI champion program reports 90% of employees use tools like ChatGPT or Copilot or things like that to cut manual research down from kind of weeks to hours. So hearing that, 50% of the people didn't like AI, it's not surprising, but a little interesting to hear. I'm struggling with the wording, but people often don't use AI, right, as you said, and I would infer that would totally just ruin their experience.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we're finding, the more the people that we talk to and companies that we talk to, there's a lot of hype around AI, but equally there's also a lot of hope around AI. Now, here's the thing: given the very high expectation and hope that companies have around AI, they've gone all in, right? There's always a budget for, trying it out and giving it a shot. Pace of advancement around AI and how quickly it's reinventing itself, compared to the pace at which, we as users are truly able to fully understand it and meaningfully implement it is, I think, where the difference is. So there's a lot to be said and a lot to be done with respect to investing in the right skill sets, preparing for that really large user base and to make them successful. I think that was a really big takeaway from that Stanford research.
Yeah. And you have quite a few products at Aethon, right? How are those evolving and adapting as the pace of AI is evolving and adapting, right?
Yeah. And talking about pace, that's one of the things that we're dealing with, right? I mean, this is probably the day of, rapid obsolescence. Back in the day, you could build a product and, you could enjoy a shelf life of, 5 to 10 years, depending on which industry and how regulated it is and how competitive it is. Those shelf lives are now, I think, shrinking closer to a 3 to 5 years. So in terms of our own product portfolio, some of the simple guiding principles that we're using right now is to fail fast, right? So put speed over efficiency. So make sure that we're literally blitz scaling, right? So, very quick build, test, and ship. Make sure that clients have used, tried, get that validation, and drive adoption as quickly as you can, right? So, implementation timelines need to go down more and more and more. I think that's one very big learning. The other one I think is really around how much of care, or let's call it hyper care, that you could provide to your customers. Just given the fact that there's going to be this long learning curve, not because of the technology, but purely because of the fact that we as people are still hinged with Gen -1 technology. So to drive that real adoption and to help them find success, we've had to make sure that we've got these hypercare models which shadow our clients, provide them with real-time support, both automated and human, a bunch of almost professional services at the back that's committed to driving success for our clients. I think that's been a cornerstone of, ensuring success of some of our AI products today.
Absolutely. That's great. And, kind of shifting a little bit, there's a lot of hype around automation. Where do you think the real opportunity lies there? What can be automated? What still needs that human touch?
Mm-hmm. So I'll take maybe one specific use case. Let's talk about maybe marketing as a function, right? In my view, marketing has always had two large pieces to it. There's data, Marketeers love to slice and dice, understand their audience, understand behaviors, understand competition, understand demand and supply. So all of those really are a complex data problem. And the other part of marketing really is a content problem, right? So everything from how do you articulate, how do you position, how do you package it all together, how do you present to your customers, is all about content, right? So therefore, it's just data and content. And if you think of the old, traditional marketing methods, and even that's evolving very rapidly, but the traditional model was largely a human-driven model, right? So it was, the chief marketing officer or someone that's driving a campaign who's asking these questions around, what does my target audience look like? Where are they going? How do I look around the corner? How do I differentiate myself from competition? And there were very manual methods for sourcing all this data. One of the areas where I think AI has done a fantastic job is in terms of being able to go both broad and deep, right? So today, the ability to able to truly understand, for example, behavioral personas, right? Something that wasn't very well understood in the past through traditional models. I think AI has opened up that whole new vista. From a content standpoint, the ability to very rapidly articulate in a very appealing manner. So think of some of the tools that we just spoke about, allows marketeers today to be able to accelerate their time to market, and therefore, kind of makes things a lot more competitive and hopefully drive success, right? So to answer your question, I think AI has been fantastic within the context of marketing, at least, in being able to solve for data problems, go broad, go deep, answer complex data-driven questions, and be able to provide great look and feel, improved turnaround times insofar as producing great content is concerned. Now, where I think the human element does not go away is in terms of strategizing, right? At the end of the day, marketing and sales is a very human thing. It's about evoking a certain kind of emotion within the minds of your customer, right? So how do I capture the mind share of my buyer is a very, very human thing. And I don't think AI is still, kind of matured to that level of cognitive intelligence to be able to at least beat a human at it. So I still think the whole, how do I articulate the messaging? What is the core messaging? Will still have to be driven by humans. What is my real competitive strategy and competitive positioning is all about business context. And again, a lot of the routine, mechanical, repetitive, data intensive tasks is something that, I'm convinced AI will definitely take over and do a lot more better.
Yeah, for sure. And I totally agree with you on the strategic planning thing. I'm trying to look it up on the side right now, but I saw something about it was Apple or someone else did this test where they gave AI like unlimited processing power and unlimited thing, and they gave it a very complex problem, and no matter how much processing power they gave it or whatever, it could not solve it because it's advanced pattern recognition, right? And you can't take in all of the inputs and all of the human elements that go into creating an effective strategic plan. I'm trying to see if I can find it here, but have you seen that study?
Oh yeah, and I've seen a couple of other interesting studies as well, and I completely agree with you in that AI, I think, has evolved through various stages, and it's still evolving, right? So think of the first wave of evolution, which was driven by what I would call brute force, right? So throw processing power, throw computing power, throw storage, and all of those things take you to one horizon of performance. Okay. And I think the last maybe 5 years, powered by NVIDIA, has allowed companies to be able to almost start to hit the ceiling there. So you're seeing models that are more powerful, more faster, but the typical criticism they get is they're able to do things which are fundamentally powered by memorization, because that's what brute force gives you. We're now beginning to see success with what I will call the next horizon. So not only are you seeing faster, more powerful models, you're also beginning to see smarter models. And here's a really interesting example to give you. And I'm trying to remember the name of this computer game. It used to be an arcade game. So it's got this little paddle at the bottom, and there is a little ball that keeps bouncing. So all you need to do is control paddle from left to right and
Pong.
make the ball bounce on it. And up above, you have, I think, 5 levels of bricks and a little vacuum above it, right? So what you're trying to do is keep having the ball bounce and break a brick, okay, till the point that you've broken all the bricks. Now, what brute force allows you to do is play this game, billions and billions and billions of times and get really fast at it. And that's one way of breaking that code versus, newer age AI models. And what they're now doing is it would actually look to aim the ball back so that it always goes and hits one corner on the top. So for instance, just imagine it's just the top right-hand corner. It takes the first brick, second, third, and fourth, and then suddenly enters that upper vacuum, and then you got to do nothing, right? So the ball just keeps bouncing up within that vacuum area and breaks all the bricks, right? So I just think that's a much more smarter way of doing it. Okay, and I think we're beginning to see a lot of use cases of AI that's automating processes on the back of smarter, more creative solutions.
Yeah, for sure. Just being conscious of time here, I do want to move on and kind of discuss, you know, how do you see your product suite and your company evolving over the next 12 to 24 months? What's up next for Aethon?
Right. Uh, we, I think, sit at the intersection of technology and business, right? We're very quickly coming to a point where we've realized that while AI is great and allows you to drive breakthrough innovation, it will also at some point get commoditized. And AI, therefore, will not necessarily be the differentiator. What I think will be the true differentiator is the ability to truly understand all those nuances, within a specific industry. So if you take, for example, financial services, the regulations, the customer experience, the nature of products and how they are evolving, and the ability to be able to leverage some of these technologies to be able to solve for some of those very, very, very specific nuances. So I think that's number one. So on our roadmap is how do we bring deeper industry value into AI, right? So let's just call it vertical AI. So that's a big part of our roadmap. Uh, I would say the second part of our roadmap is to kind of work with AI, but to be able to look beyond AI as well. So for instance, there are a whole lot of other technologies out there. There's, natural language processing. There's, graph technology and, so many other such tools that could actually complement and solve some of the problems that AI might not necessarily be the best solution for today. So the ability to kind of bring about all these new age technologies in a highly complementary manner is again something that's on our roadmap.
Okay, that's great. It's good to see how innovative you are and how flexible you're willing to be. As an AI company that's willing to look past AI. So great. I want to move on to our last kind of section here. It's a quick rapid fire. So I have a few questions that I'm going to ask and just whatever's on the top of your head. Sound good? Okay. First one. What's one myth about AI and ops that you'd love to debunk?
The fact that AI can do everything. I mean, like I said, a lot of hype, a lot of hope. Everyone thinks that it can be done, but I still think we're some time away from that.
I agree. One action that a founder should take this week to start applying AI better.
Vibe coding. Something that I personally love, regardless of your age. There are smart tools out there, low code, no code. You don't have to be a programmer to build.
Vibe coding. Interesting. What is that?
So think of, and this is, I guess, going to take a little more time, but if you think about the world of technology and how coding worked, it's got this 80-20 principle to it, right? So you actually spent 80% of the time in things like, writing code, looking at syntax, testing it out, building architecture, front end, back end, all those technical things. And only 20% was really in terms of, what is the business problem and what's the business logic. Over the last, I would say 2 to 3 years, there's this whole new arena of vibe coding where you have low code, no code platforms, which actually flips the entire construct. So now suddenly you're spending 80% of the time in really asking yourself, what is that business problem that I need to solve? Applying analytical and logical faculties to say, here's a step by step by step, if this, then this approach to answer some of those questions. And you today have technology that can do all of the coding and the syntax. So, look up tools such as Cursor, Replit, Lovable, and there's a whole host of them today which allow you to do exactly that. You could build a website literally within hours, if not lesser than that, which would otherwise taken you, days and days and months of coding. Building apps again, rapidly is something that's now being enabled purely because of some of these vibe coding tools.
Absolutely. Okay. What's one lesson from your early career in banking or other Fortune 1000 companies that still shapes how you lead today?
Well, I would say customer first. A lot of us entrepreneurs seem to be very consumed by, the products that we build. We get very passionate, fall in love with our products, and sometimes just, at the risk of straying away from what the market really wants. So I would say, yes, you need to have passion for your product, but think customer, think market, and work backwards from there.
Okay. And finally, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever heard or been given?
So just last week, I was speaking to one of my mentors, and he said, be a sponge. And I fancied the idea of a sponge bath, and he said, no, it's not that. It's just that in this day and age when everything's changing, be a sponge in that, be a eternal learner. Keep learning, keep absorbing new things, and I guess that's the only way to improve yourself.
Thank you for joining, Harsha. Where can listeners find you or learn more about Aethon if they want to dive deeper?
Well, go to our website, www.aethonsolutions.com. I might be based in India, but I live out of the box in US most of the time. So yeah, just send me an email.
Okay, amazing. If you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a colleague or tag us online. We'd love to hear your takeaways. Thanks again, Harsha. This was great.
Thanks for having me.